Alright guys, welcome back, and in this tutorial what I want to do is I want to talk to you a little bit more about relative layout. So if you don't really understand what's going on with this relative layout or exactly how things are positioned, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be adding another widget right above here, and it's going to make a lot more sense, and you guys are going to have a lot more control over the positioning of your widgets after this tutorial. So just like, actually let me do this. This might make a little more sense. So I'll say that we're making the same home screen as last time, where you have an email and a password and you click this to log in. However, I'm just going to be adding one as an example. So instead of click me house, I'll put like log in. So I don't want to just run that, but this button is eventually going to say log in. So now let me go ahead and add one of those inputs, which would be an area where the user could type something. So the first thing we need to do is import it. So import android.widget, and it's called edit text. Alright, so actually let me do this. Alright, I'm going to take this button and cut this and put it right under here. Alright, so we have the layout created, and then we have the button created, and now these are the button's rules, and then all of the housekeeping is taken care of down there. So I think that's a little bit more organized. So now the first thing I want to do is just create that edit text field, and we'll say that, I don't know, it could be like for the username. So I'll put username input, even though it's technically called edit text. So edit text, I'll just name it username. That'll be easy to remember, and set it equal to, why do I always freaking type new edit text and this. Holy sweet. Okay, so now we have that edit text field created. Now the next thing I want to do is this. Eventually, of course, whenever you make a real life application, you're going to have a bunch of widgets on your screen, a bunch of stuff. Now, a good thing to always do is to set an ID for each widget, so then you can reference each one. You can also do some other cool things if each widget has its own ID. So again, an ID is just a number to reference each one. So let's go ahead and add an ID to this button and also the username. So red button, and all you have to do, it's really easy, set ID and then pass in a value, and also do the same for username. Set ID, and we'll call this one 2. So the ID of red button is 1, and the username input, which is above it, that widget will be ID 2, and I'll show you guys what we do with that in just a second. But for now, remember I said, whenever you want to lay out something explicitly in a certain position, you need to give it these rules right here. So we already did it for the button, so now we have to do it for the username as well. So this is actually going to be really similar. So if you just copy these button details and paste it right below, then just change the variable button details to username details. And let me see who's texting me. Alright, it is my sister, and she's giving me gift suggestions for my mom, which I kind of need because it is Christmas in 5 days and I have absolutely no idea what to get her. She's actually very difficult to shop for. So, alright, where was I? Oh yeah, in the middle of a tutorial. Alright, so now we have rules, and these are basically the same exact things. We're pretty much just making a container right here called username details, and the container is the same size of whatever that input is. Simple enough. So now what I want to do is say, okay, I'm going to take that container, which is pretty much the input, and I'm going to position it right above this button. So how do we do that? Well, above these button details, let me add a give rules to position widgets. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is username details. We need to add a rule, And the first rule is going to be this. We're going to say that we want to position it above here. Where above? Well, we didn't get into those rules yet, but we do want to position it above. So relative layout dot above. So that takes it and it puts it above the button. Now, actually I lied. This doesn't put it above the button. This just says, okay, you want to position it above something. In the second parameter, that's where we put the button. So we say red button, and this is where the get ID comes in handy, because we need to pass an ID of a widget in here, which is going to be 1, and then it's going to say, okay, take this and position it above the thing with the ID 1. So position it above the button. So now our username input is sitting above that button. So the next thing we need to do is add another rule, and that is this. So it's going to be above the button, but we also want to take it and center it horizontally, so it's in the middle of the screen. And of course, horizontal means left and right, so now it's going to be above and in the center. But right now, if we just ran this, it would be sitting directly on top of it. And of course, you always have some space between the input and the button. So let me show you guys how to add a little margin or padding between those two. So the last rule we're gonna add, ooh, my voice just cracked. I'm like freaking 27 years old. What's going on, Bucky? Alright. So set margins, and actually and here's another tip. If you ever highlight something and hold down Control and press Q, then it's gonna pop up those details. So these details, I know you can't see them all, but alright. So it says give me 4 values: left, top, right, and bottom. So if you're used to web design, it starts on top, but remember in this, it starts on the left. Now, we only want to add some margins to the bottom, a little bit of spacing between the bottom of this and the button. So for everything else, the first 3, we can just pass in 0. And for the last one, we'll just pass in, I don't know, like 50. And if it looks too small, then we can always come back and add more. But again, that's all we're doing right here. So we created an input, we gave all of our widgets an ID, and then we're setting the rules on how we want to lay everything out right there. Now, of course, the last thing we need to do is actually take this and add it to our layout. So just like the button, Bucky's layout, add view, which means add widget, basically. And what we want to do is, I think we just named it username. Yep. So what we want to add is that widget, and the rules that we're going to be using are these rules right there. So now let me go ahead and run this and check it out. So there you go. As you can see, we now position that input relative to this button. We put it on top of it, and we added some padding, or technically margin, it's called, below the input to give us a little bit of space. Now we have a problem here, and that's this is incredibly small. It looks like the user could fit about 1 character in there, and their username is probably going to be a little longer than that. So in the next couple tutorials, I'm going to be showing you guys some more cool things you can do and how to fix that problem as well.